Perfect. Cool. All right, Max, thank you so much for being here and helping us out with the community. Hi, Boyne. Glad you're here too. Um, yeah. Oh, here we go. All right, Max, ready to go when you are.
Yep, I'm ready.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for being here and contributing to the community. Hi, Boyne. Glad you're here on Start Mod to hang out with us. Max, please introduce yourself.
Hey, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Max. I'm fractional CTO, technical project manager, Scrum Master, and a huge, huge fan of software development. Probably I can tell you a little bit about my background, my journey of my career. I started my career in software development like 14, 15 years ago. Initially, I used to be a mobile engineer, but over the time, I switched to take more and more leadership positions. And during past, 5 years, mostly I have been working as a fractional CTO, helping my clients within different domains refine the ideas and take them from rough concept to something tangible to real projects.
I love it. I like that you have a nice mixed background. Yeah, with a deep career, and then also now acting as CTO for a wonderful dev shop that, full disclosure, I used to work with. I've mentioned this to a few people in the past, but yeah, I was at a product UX firm for a while, and you, Tula, your company was our partner that would take all my blueprints that I designed with our clients and bring them to life by building them out. So yeah, it's really fun to
Really?
yeah have that background together. I know you're a little bit newer. This was a long time ago when I was
Yeah.
doing this, but yeah.
Honestly, I didn't know. I joined Tuluco like 11 years ago, and as I mentioned, initially as a mobile engineer, so maybe I have even seen your designs. I don't know.
Yeah, this was I think it was 2011 when I was
Okay,
there.
it
Yeah.
was before my time.
Yeah, but yeah, I always appreciated like, yeah, Tulico giving me a lot of like pushback on what was possible and what's not, and allowing me to help the founders that I was working with to refine their ideas and work within the constraints of the technology. And I'm sure that we'll talk about that a little bit more. But those of you that are joining us now, please use the text chat to ask your questions. I will relay them to Max and get you answers, insight, feedback, advice. That goes for building a career, the role of CTO, anything, technology related. And then also, if you're a founder, a non-technical founder, Max is a wonderful resource for you to understand what it takes for you to not waste time and money working with a technical partner, whether that is a co-founder or a dev shop you're hiring or an individual, whatever that might be. And again, we'll get a little bit more into that because I think that's where a lot of people are going to benefit the most. But yeah, yeah, great. We got a couple questions coming in already. I see you, Moo. We'll get to that in just a moment. Um, Let me check real quick. Hey, nice to see you, Lars. Hi, Boyne. So yeah, this one's a little bit interesting for you. We'll see about your experience when it comes to fundraising, but it's about MVPs too. So Mo asked,
Okay.
how do you guys recommend to get funding for an MVP? For my product, I would need $10,000 in compute to get started, but I am a student and don't have that much.
I think there are multiple ways how you can achieve this goal, and probably I would start trying to research for any programs from AI providers who will be subsidizing or providing AI credits or compute power with a huge discount for students or early stage startups.
Yeah,
I think this is the best way to go. And also, please be cautious and very wise where you want to put this money. And reality is for many of such MVPs, You don't need heavy development. You don't need to invest tons of money unless it's really required for your idea. Sometimes you can start very lean, do some dirty way coded prototype and already get some initial traction with that. At least it will reveal if there are any engagement, if people are actually using your app or platform or whatever. So one common mistake I have seen many times during my career, people have great ideas, but for some reason they think that their app, their product should bake in all possible features, all nice to have things at the very beginning, like instantly. And typically, especially before AI era, it was so expensive, and you may spend months and months with a full-time dedicated dev team just building something, and then suddenly realize the moment you went to market that nobody wants it, or at least only half of these features are actually on demand, and the rest of them just wasted money. So yeah, be cautious and try to be lean as much as possible.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. It's super important. Oftentimes people are rushing ahead, they're skipping a lot of steps, and they forget what stage they're at, and they think that when they launch, they need to have this very robust, suite of software. And like you're saying, like Moo, why do you feel you need $10,000 in or 10,000 in compute for your MVP? That feels like a lot because at this stage right now, you don't have a single user, right? Because you don't have an MVP in the market yet. So as Max is saying, it's going to be really important for you to refine what your vision is and distill it down to a true MVP, a minimum viable product. What is the bare minimum you can get away with to service one user, one client, right? Just figure that out first. And you have full control over how many users you have, how many customers you have, because you're able to set gates to that and only accept one at a time if you wish, right? So figure this out. I do really appreciate you talking about like, yeah, pursuing credits and stuff too, Max. Um, there's a lot of different programs out there through universities, through colleges, through accelerator programs, and the companies themselves, you can just reach out to them. Don't be afraid to like find them on LinkedIn, send them a message, ask if they have anything available. Let them know that yeah, you're an early stage founder, a student maybe, you're limited. They want to help you get in so you can be a very long-lasting client of theirs, right? So very good advice, Max. Move, yeah, I see you type in. So you've got follow-up questions, feel free to ask. And then everyone else, don't be shy about this. And Max, on this idea of MVPs, you've built a lot of different products. I'm curious when you're working with a client, how do you help them assess and identify what might be a little bit too early to focus on and ultimately costing them like, too much money, too much time to get it out the door and into the market? How do you help them address that?
Basically, you're describing the thing that we call discovery phase. When we have a bunch of initial interviews with a potential client, trying to understand what's the core idea of their new product or existing one, and what's the best strategy to go to market with such product. And also, the most challenging part is to understand what is secret juice of them, the secret sauce. Like many stuff in modern apps are just default. It's expected by standard among the industry. Security, owls, two-factor notification, subscriptions, push notifications, all that stuff. But the thing is, it's not your product. There is nothing interesting in these features, but you still have to have them in your app in order to be competitive. But what I'm trying to suggest, typically speaking with such potential clients, is to focus on the most interesting thing. And probably the whole MVP should be wrapped around one particular problem it tries to solve, and everything else is secondary. And if you can solve this problem efficiently, if your users like your approach, then there is a good path for success and how it can be extended and improved with more features, with more pieces of functionality, and so on. Practically speaking, during such discovery phase, like I said, step number one is to intake all thoughts, all raw ideas about the product from client. Then we are trying to map user journeys, trying to understand how we see a typical audience, what kind of ask for such standard user we may see, and also we are trying to understand the core problem they're trying to solve. And then we are trying to find the shortest way how we can do implementation for this solution. And shortest way, it not necessarily needs to be bad, but it should be cost efficient. Sometimes it may use some hacks, maybe shortcuts, and probably it will require some rework in future. But at the very beginning, when you do not have anything, when you're starting from scratch, the most important thing is to go to the market as soon as possible. If you can build an MVP within a few weeks versus doing a full-blown development for 3 months, do it. The sooner you deliver it to market, the sooner you can validate your idea to see real traction. So this is my always recommendation. Try to trim down everything non-essential and focus on the most key stuff. Also, I don't remember how the thing is called exactly, but I read it a while ago about this concept when all features within product can be divided into three groups. Basically, the first group is standard layer. All features I just mentioned, push notifications, owls, like it's expected by default. You cannot launch a product without that, right? So no matter what, you need to do it. Second one is the most important layer. This is exact thing that solves somebody's problem or several problems. This is your secret sauce. And on top of that, there is a third layer of features. It's nice to have things. And basically, most of them will make people talking about your product. Some exciting things, some hyping things. But still, at the very beginning, you need to focus on the first two layers. And then once you have resources, once you have some promising traction, you should pivot to work more and more on the third layer of features. Hopefully it's more or less clear,
No,
this
no, that's
concept.
yeah, that's very helpful. I like that a lot. I haven't heard that before, but in terms of like the concepts, it definitely follows suit with a lot of lean methodology and yeah, just good project management like frameworks, whether that's, Kanban or Agile or something else, because it's all about identifying, yeah, within the context that you're working within, your resources, your limitations, and what your goals are, and making sure that you're always working towards those goals with what you have. But yeah, that's very, very helpful. Max added and asked, yeah, thanks. Issue as of now is probably just be renting a bunch of GPUs as we run GPU parallelized simulation and compute costs for building it, running it. Would something like a Claude wrapper be appropriate for an MVP to show a proof of concept to attract VCs? Because that would definitely be something I would not need funding for.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I already have a bunch of projects in my portfolio where you have been using AI from OpenAI, from Claude for different type of features. And it's an interesting use case. Uh, I think the biggest shift happened probably 2 years ago, at least in my industry, when AI became more and more popular, more accessible for regular engineers. So nowadays, you don't need to necessarily have your own physical machine with a bunch of GPUs to run custom AI models. You just pay to AI providers and get access to frontier models as you go. And a barrier to start actually working with it is pretty low. As an example, just recently we built a whole AI assistant theme around OpenAI API with its own personality. And we also built a memory feature, RAG feature on top of that with a pretty large knowledge-based system there. And basically, we didn't train our own model. It's all combination of prompts. We're using existing APIs from them and so on. This project is already live. And basically, they are not experiencing any major issues just based on the fact that they're using API for AI from other AI provider. So it's a big open question if you need these GPUs. Of course, there are some projects and concepts which require it. For example, if you're building your own custom trained AI model, probably it would be cost efficient to have it locally, physically on your machine. But for the most of the cases, probably it's not necessary. At least using something like Claude for short terms as a temporary workaround is cost efficient solution. So I would second that.
Yeah, I like this because again, when you're early stage, especially before you go to market, you got to remember that you're dealing with a lot of assumptions. And as Max, you said, it's about validating those assumptions, or at least testing to see if you can validate those assumptions before moving forward and putting more resources into the project or the venture that you're trying to build a company around. So yeah, with that in mind, though, I'm curious, from your experience with Tulico, working with clients that have done the preliminary work using Claude or other AI tools to build out a software app, whatever it is, what sort of hurdles or challenges are there moving from that AI built MVP prototype to a more managed solution that a whole team's working on, that you've got your own engineers because now you've like either managed to raise funding or you've managed to monetize it enough to hire some people to come on board. What kind of like things should people be aware of that are potential risks or pitfalls, and how can you help them make that transition easier with working with someone like yourself or others?
It's a really great question, and probably it will require a pretty long answer. So I'll start pretty far from that. Uh, Tula has been working in the market for more than 20 years. And during that time, we have seen several shifts in terms of how we work. Initially, it was primary focus on websites, then it pivoted to mobile apps, then cloud infrastructure, multi-platform hybrid applications, which just work fine both on web and mobile. We survived crypto hype era, and now it's AI. But honestly, probably I have seen the most of changes in terms of the way how we work during past 2 years versus previous 18 years. And basically, AI agents, the way how you can create new applications, completely changed the landscape of modern software development. So, as I see a huge trend that smart senior engineers, they're not just doing coding itself, it's kind of solved, more or less. Instead, they're taking more and more leadership roles, like acting as a team lead who is orchestrating a bunch of AI agents, aka engineers. So you still control output, you still set priorities, but instead of doing many stuff manually, you just utilize AI agents. And with this approach, obviously the coding part is solved and it's much quicker than before. Still, there are a bunch of pitfalls and risks. First of all, you should not trust AI blindly. It will do mistakes and it will happen in such way for a while. My expectation, at least a couple more years. So each output from AI should be reviewed. But the good thing is that you can also use other AIs for such automatic review gates and only leave human in the loop review only for cases which requires attention where it really matters. So in this case, you can reduce cognitive load on engineers during such process. So very often AI knows some context about your feature, about new implementation, but loses some important details. So along with giving context about particular thing you want to build, AI should somehow know about overall intention for your product. It's supported with technical documentation, with proper user story structure, and a bunch of supportive skills which can be used by AI. In this case, you feed AI agent with all these context with all this data. You let it do its work, create a new feature, do the coding. You do automatic reviews, you validate them, you do automation testing, and then once everything is validated and verified, it's ready for production or for launch. Initially, many of AI providers they try to put huge discounts on their subscriptions or prices for API usage were pretty cheap. Nowadays, it's changing exactly because of compute power. It's expensive. And on one hand, you can still wipe code in MVP for dirty cheap price, probably just the price of Pro plan for Claude or OpenAI or something like $100 per month. But if we're talking about serious AI-enabled, AI-native development, it will cost you hundreds and thousands of dollars per month just spent on AI tokens. So AI is quick, it's definitely super efficient, and this is the way to go. And there is no way you cannot use AI in 2026, but you should be ready to pay for that. Unfortunately, it's not free. And local models, uh, yes, partially it can resolve the cost factor, but they're not such intelligent as frontier models from AI providers.
I hope everyone's taking notes. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is very good.
Hopefully, I didn't lost track answering your question.
No, no, that's good. Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that. Origami Unicorn asks, I found a niche. My product would be a control layer. I would be a non-technical founder that needs to find a technical team to get to an MVP, and also funding to obtain the hardware that is an estimate to be five to $7,000. How would I find a team? So yeah, this is kind of interesting, like because this kind of touches on a couple different areas. In terms of again going back to we kind of touched on a little bit in it with prepping to work with someone like you or a technical founder partner, how to best present what you want them to build so they understand it and get it on the same page and contribute their best expertise and experiences to shaping what that will be and guiding, the vision, but also in regards to where to look and how to find, either co-founders or dev shops and vet them because that's where a lot of people go wrong too, Max. And I'd love to hear your take on this. Where things go really wrong working with the wrong people.
Um, Probably it may sound a little bit like ads, but last year I discovered for myself a platform from YC. It's called Startup School. Basically, this kind of social network for founders and startup creators. And it's kind of dating app, but for co-founders. So you create your profile, you fill information about your product, your role, what you want to contribute, and also you specify whom you're trying to find. A technical partner, like first engineer within the team, and then the platform tries to match you with appropriate individuals. And then you can schedule a follow-up call with these people, talk with them, try to do a vibe check, and see if there is any opportunity for collaborative work. And surprisingly, this pattern was very efficient for myself, and I met so many incredible people with so great ideas there. It's just not a standard answer, probably, but it worked for me.
No, I like that answer. It also brings up a couple other opportunities to explore, and I talk about this a lot as well. Go to hackathons, go to startup weekends, go to different events that give you an opportunity to work on a team with other people and get to know each other. And like you said, Max, vibe. See if the vibes are good or if they're completely off. Because these partnerships, whether it's a co-founder or any other kind of like business relationship that's long term, you want that to be a healthy fun relationship, not one where you're constantly fighting or at each other about, you know, different conflicts about what the idea should be or anything like this, or something even worse than that. So that's really good, like, suggestion for sure. Um,
Gary, it's been said that like finding the right co-founder, it's even more difficult to find a lifetime partner.
Yeah, I
And
can
it's kind of probably a good definition of co-founder. It's not like a like-minded person for you, but also a person with whom you would like to hang out besides work, besides your startup project. So you literally need to go into wild and find a friend who will be also willing to work with you on some great ideas. So it's not easy at all.
No, it isn't, and it's good for people to be aware of that, and, like, again, go slow and steady, don't be in a super rush for these things, and the more opportunities you put yourself into that is out in the real world, the more opportunities you have to make those friends and discover like, different skill sets and expertise. And then they also know people that they can introduce you to. Like I play ice hockey and the people that I've met playing ice hockey are some of like my favorite people that I've worked with. I have a couple friends that um have done video projects with us, different like mentors that be a part of this, all kinds of different sorts of fun things. And the more you're just out there and participating in the community around you, the more chances you have to make those friends and yeah, find worthwhile partners. And what you're saying about the co-founder thing versus like, like a romantic partner, it kind of makes sense because of what you just said too. Like a lot of people go into it just thinking like, oh, this is just someone I need to, work with. And they think very transactionally, like, oh, they're just gonna do the marketing for me. I'm gonna do like, this what I do kind of thing. But like you said, you need to enjoy time outside of work with them as well because it's a serious relationship. And people overlook a lot of the nuances involved in that, and it leads to a lot of horrible, horrible co-founders that I've seen, like so many people that just like hate each other, especially too because they kind of lose sight of conflict that happens just naturally in any relationship, but especially a business one where money is involved and you're very attached to, this project that you're building. And it just allows people to get a little bit too emotional. And if they're not ready for that, not prepared for that, it goes way off the rails very quickly. So very, very good insights and advice on that. Um, Mu added some more context. Thank you again. By the way, for context, my startup is based on training policies for robots in simulation. Hope that helps. One other thing I'm struggling with is UI design. I've tried out Lovable and have used Claude, but in my opinion, they are not the best. To be fair, I don't think I am optimal in my usage with them. How would you go about designing your own website front end? So this is kind of like interesting because you were talking about earlier using the AI tools and kind of being a little bit more in charge of the prompts you're using. So what advice do you have for Moo in regards to using AI for UI design?
Um, Actually, nowadays, to come up with a pretty good-looking website is not as such heavy lifting as it was a couple of years ago. So probably a good starting point would be to use something like Cloud Design to do some smart prompting, explain what you want to see, probably load it with some examples for inspiration. It's just one way of things, like relatively quick. Other a little bit more sophisticated approach. If you start with design system, basically a whole library defining what kind of components you want to use, how they should look like think about them about as the Lego building blocks. Style of them, fonts, colors, empty state, loading state, all these little nuances. So as a result, AI will have a full explanation of all these building blocks. And then you try to explain it what you want to see on the website. Hey, here we should have nav menu. Here we need to have hero section. It should have slider of carousel with a bunch of images. Now we need to set a new form for sign up now, and so on and so on. And then once AI has all this required context plus library of components, it will be able to generate a pretty good looking UI for you. But one mistake I want to alert you, uh, do not move forward with generic AI design. Probably if you have seen such website once, you will be able to recognize it easily. Like purple colors, greenish colors, dark theme. It's kind of pretty standard. So try to be a little bit more unique and bring some personality, if it makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense, and it's important, especially in this day and age where so many people are using, like, the same tools or very similar tools, and they're all based on, like, a lot of the same templates as well. Like you're saying, you see the same thing over and over again. So, like, yeah, take the time to do some basic branding exercises to define your mission, define your values, define your culture, and figure out what you feel represents those things through colors and imagery, whether those are like, logos, illustrations, or photographs. And use more photographs if you can. You don't have to hire a photographer. We all got really great cameras on our phones. Just take the time to kind of stage some things of people using your product or, you know, in situations where people can see themselves using your product or service, right? And add that to what you're doing with your website design. With the UI design stuff, like Max are saying, like, you know, it goes back to what you first were saying in terms of like understanding, like, through discovery, what people's expectations are for the market within that, that realm of your competitors. Don't copy them, but recognize what expectations they have that are shared across, the same types of products. But then you can also do some research and find other things that they're familiar with that you can borrow from. And this is what I love doing when I was working with Tula. We were working on multiple projects at the same time, different industries, different markets, and they're all doing very similar things, whether it's onboarding or, dashboards or something else like that. And I was being exposed to all these different, like, things, doing it slightly different ways, and I'd be like, "Oh, wait, if I borrow from this accounting software and I transport it over here to this data ad, dashboard, like, holy cow, like, that is something that is a little bit new and unique to this, but not so unfamiliar that people are gonna be confused by it," right? And so, yeah, it's just really important to kind of, again, take the time to explore different things and pay attention to what you're using and what other people, your customers, your users are experiencing that you can borrow from to kind of find that innovation that makes it a little bit unique into itself. But again, rooted into your branding and your own like style and sense of personality. So important. Uh,
Uh,
yeah.
hey, I also have one additional thing regarding that. Along with the visual style, um, do not overlook onto UX, actual user experience, because you want to make the whole experience not only good looking, but also it should be convenient, it should be straightforward. User shouldn't guess how to use one or another feature. So it's also a very important moment. And another a little bit more specific thing. Basically, modern web development is about using a bunch of frameworks or libraries of components. And typically, there is a pretty defined set of such components. It's either ShadeCN or GlueStack or material design. So, as a part of working on your design system, you can choose whatever library you like and try to build UI on top of that and tell AI to use this particular library. So, in this case, produced designs will be more consistent, looking within the same style.
I that's really good advice. Yeah. It's been a while since I was doing a lot of UX stuff, but yeah, I was digging through a lot of the different yeah, material design documentation and other documentation coming out. Uh what was the one that original Twitter put out? I forget. Boot was it called Bootstrap or Boot Camp? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Bootstrap.
Bootstrap.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Very long ago. But yeah, all these things like it's very important to dig into the different documentation and libraries out there to familiar yourself with that. And then going back to using AI, like you said, then you can reference those and you incorporate those with your prompts and everything, which I think is brilliant. We got a question from Daniel Escobar Reynoso over on LinkedIn. What makes a software developer stand out when you are looking to work with them?
Okay. I have a personal take on this question, and it's actually a pretty good one. Uh, there are different types of engineers, and depends on certain project, you need different combination of skill sets, soft skills, hard skills, mindsets. But like among my experience, uh, I value the most people who can work independently, who is very proactive, who can do decision making on their own, who doesn't need constant supervision, and who is very flexible in terms of technologies and approaches. So basically, if you're talking about ideal profile of software engineer, I'm looking into full stack, senior engineer, AI enabled, with great communication skills, and who is not just creating code base, but also who can understand what product does and when to ask some tricky questions about functionality, about, hey, why we're spending 1 month of work on doing that? Are you really sure?
Again, I think that's great advice, and that goes both to, like, people looking to build their career, but also again, like the founders, non-technical founders looking to vet people. Like, you don't want to just hire anyone that's willing to do whatever you say without any pushback or asking any of those hard questions. That's probably not the right person to be working with. You want to work with someone that is going to challenge you and dig deep into understanding the context of what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it in that fashion. And then again, allow them to provide their expertise, their specialization to help you achieve that goal in the most effective way possible. So very good. I'm curious, like, in regards to the role of CTO, a lot of these early stage founders who are technical, they see themselves as like being a CTO, but typically it's, them and a couple friends at most starting up. What are some of like the more serious challenges of the CTO role that a lot of these less experienced people who are just starting out with their own startup are completely unaware of that they should be aware of?
Probably for the time's sake, I would mention just a couple of examples of such obstacles. First of all, it's a system architecture. So it's not enough just to create the app. Also, you need to take into consideration future scalability, sustainability, how you're going to maintain the code base, how you're going to manage cloud infra, and so on. So basically, almost for each single app, even if it's just small MVP, you need to have an architectural plan how it should be organized, unless it's something really simple. This is one thing. Another thing, uh, we should also always remember about ongoing costs. I'm not just talking about cost on development itself, but also for supporting features, especially if you have something AI enabled. I have a good example of use case. There was a lending firm from Florida, Miami. Basically, they were reviewing a bunch of requests from small businesses for loans. And as a part of their process, they had to deal with scanning PDFs with bank transactions, basically monthly statements. And they have been using AI for this purpose, specifically one of models from OpenAI. And it turned out that the cost of tokens of processing was so huge that they decided to pivot to something else, just because overall cost was too much for such a huge volume. And initially, um, when it was created from the first time, nobody tried to even calculate the monetization part of that. So as a result, this mistake caused some significant rework and necessity to find another approach.
I like this. Again, like, yeah, thinking more long term and being aware of like the impacts as you start and grow and then scale are very important. And this too, like, comes back to a couple other mentors talking about like financial modeling and being good at accounting. So everyone that wants to like, run their own business, take a financial accounting course, bunch of free ones online, and take one at the community college too, whatever, super helpful. Or sit down with a CPA or equivalent in whatever, country you're in that has like, license accounting for that. Very, very good advice. Moo has
Uh,
a oh, yeah.
just one additional two cents on that. Another big domain, which is typically forgotten at the very beginning, security and data privacy. especially if you're working with large enterprise companies or in health tech. I'm talking about GDPR, SOC 2 compliance, or HIPAA. In order to be uh, in order with these certifications, you need to be really wise and smart in terms of how you work with the data, who has access to what. And overall, it's not only about secure way to code product, but also about security culture within the company. And during my work on for one of my client, I was leading a charge to get SOC 2 compliance certificate, and it was a pretty painful experience because it took us around 5 months to get finally validated.
Yeah, that's crazy. One of the last projects I worked on with Tula was actually a HIPAA compliant project. And yeah, it was crazy learning about all like, the intricacies involved in that. And yeah, you all helped immensely with making sure that it was all done appropriately, but my goodness, yeah, so many different things. Moo asks, I was wanting advice on how to secure internships at YC Antler-backed startups. As I start to build my own, I think it would be good to see founders in real time build their own product. Do you have any advice? Do you have any advice on seeking out internships?
Well, probably nothing specific besides just general advice. Network. Do more networking. Trying to find people from such startups, from such communities, talk with them, make connections, and eventually it will pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. This goes back to again just being part of your local community and reaching out to people. But yeah, I see over on the Discord, we're also like, streaming this too as well. There's conversations about reaching out to people on LinkedIn that you're interested in, and that's great advice. Just, be very personal and not in a like a kind of a creepy way, in a more like, respectful way. But you wanna just share, like, what your passion is, what you're hoping to, like, learn from these people. Approach them like a mentor without asking them to be a mentor, and just, make them feel empowered by sharing their advice, their feedback, their insights, their life experience with you, but also keep those first questions, those first favors you're asking of these people very short, something they can to within like 5 minutes of writing back to you. Start there, and it goes back to what you're saying, Max, of testing the vibes. See if you guys vibe, and just like a simple little exchange like that, and if the vibes are good, you can always follow up. But again, be respectful and patient. Don't act entitled. Don't be bugging them every friggin' day. I get messages. I don't know if Max you get these, but outreach hitting my inbox, and I don't reply because I'm busy and doing stuff. And then within 24 hours, I get another message like, "Hey, I'm not sure if you saw my email," and it's like, I I was gonna reply, but now I don't want to because now you're just spamming me, right? So I don't know about your take on that, but how do you feel about people reaching out to you for advice like this, and to like kind of start building the connection that you don't know? What advice do you give for people reaching out to you for that sort of like, help?
Personally, I'm always to open new connections, to talk and meet new people. But unfortunately, during past probably 2 years, see a trend that all these cold outreach campaigns is just AI generated stuff. And basically, people are not even investing just to read info on my LinkedIn page. They're trying to sell me different development services, despite the fact I'm also kind of development agency by myself, and they're not respectful. They're spamming you, and you can clearly see the like timing after 24 hours of the first message, in 7 days, in 30 days. Like it's all marketing campaigns. And among these tons and tons of spam messages, it's really hard to detect like a purely a genuine personal message. So whoever you're trying to connect through LinkedIn or any other communication channel, try to be personal and do not overuse AI for this purpose. Even if your message is simple, maybe it looks a little bit oversimplific, fine. If it can attract some attention, if you can, hit some personal strengths of this person, more chances that this guy person will respond to you. And also, remember that everybody has tons of meetings, other work to do, that very often there is simply no time to review all these new incoming messages, not even to respond to them.
Yeah, that too. That's where like, the patience is really important. And if you do not hear back from someone that you're reaching out to, you can send them another message, but just wait enough time. Like my kind of rule that I've always had since I was young, and I would do this when I was building my photography business. I'd reach out to different band managers and publicists as a kid in high school. I would wait at least 3 weeks at like the like the shortest amount of time before following up again. And when I did follow up again, I'd always include like a little anecdote, like a sentence or two about what I've done since I last reached out to them to let them know that I'm not just sitting around waiting on them to help me. I'm helping myself, I'm doing other things, I'm working towards like, my goals to demonstrate like my passion and my drive. And that resonated with so many people. And when I get that from other people reaching out to me now that I'm older, it makes me feel so good. It makes me so happy to see people doing this thing in a way that feels genuine and passionate, but not over the top obsessive, right? And so, yeah, this is all like wonderful, good stuff, Max. Let's check in. Okay, so people, what we got? We got 15 minutes left. So if you haven't asked any questions or if you have follow-up questions, do it now. Throw them in the chat. I will relay them as I have been doing to Max so you can get questions answered, feedback, advice, insights. Uh, what else? Yeah, let me check over here on LinkedIn because that doesn't update all the time. All right. Yeah, Moo's asking if it's possible to connect with you on LinkedIn, if that's possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right
Just
on.
send me a request for invite.
Yeah, great. Okay, so yeah, Max's LinkedIn information is on the event page. So if you're curious, feel free to check out profile, and yeah, reach out. Um, what else? Hang on, there's a bunch of discussion going back and forth. Origami was mentioning that they're looking for capable embedded teams, and they're struggling because a lot of the dynamics feel toxic. The vibes are off. And I'm gonna guess that might be because rushing into it a little bit too much, trying to work with people before you've kind of again like kind of spent enough time with them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Referring to one of previous questions about the role of CTO. Probably it's not purely responsibility for CTO, but again, I have to wear multiple hats during working with my clients. Typically, it's also on me to build an efficient technical engineering team for my client. And sometimes it's just engineers working from two local side. Sometimes it's training and coaching internal team. And very often it's just a hybrid approach when the client has some, let's say, 3 to 5 engineers working onshore, US based, and also we are supporting them with a larger team from offshore filling different positions. And as a CTO, as a technical project manager, you need to set up processes, you need to organize day-to-day work in completely remote environment. So nowadays, especially after the COVID, everything is so remote. So it's a miracle if you can find an engineering team working from the same physical location.
I'm glad you brought that up too because something else that gets overlooked or disregarded is the importance of documentation and building those processes. And that goes for any role you're in at your company. Like like whether you're the technical founder, non-technical founder, something else in between, taking the time to document what you're doing is allowing you to have more data and information to reflect on and utilize in building a more efficient system, but also identifying different trouble areas and overcoming those areas. And even when you're like, you're building your MVP and testing your MVP, like document who you're speaking to, what like profile they fall into with like their demographics, their psychographics, uh, how you found them, how you introduce them to your product, your service, whatever that is. Document as much as you can. That's gonna help you do your job better. That's also gonna help you bring people onto the team and train your team and get your team working in more unison with everything. And then when it comes to other partners and stuff, or fundraising or strategic partners, it gives you so much more to leverage in communicating, but also bringing people together and getting them going. So that's really good advice, Max. William Melody, glad you're here. William asks, do you recommend someone with CTO experience pursuing a fractional CTO career path? What things should someone keep in mind when attempting to develop a fractional CTO career? That's a great question.
That's a great question. So, if you value quite stable work, probably you should stick with full-time CTO position. But if you're okay, uh, constantly switching context, working on multiple projects, trying to firefight multiple wildfires per day, it's probably a fractional position for you. So basically, you have to be capable to do multitasking and to dive deeper into detail very quickly because by nature of the fractional role, you do not have much time for that. And sometimes during some periods of time, I have around like between 2 to 5 parallel projects. And sometimes I have only 2 hours per day per project. So during this short time frame, I need to understand what's new, what are the updates, what are the biggest obstacles, what kind of decisions I need to make. And it's a constant push. It's a constant pressure on me. Definitely it's not stressful, but sometimes it's just fun. So if you're trying to chase such paths in your career, ask your questions. Are you ready for that? Do you really like such type of environment, activity, constant pressure? If the answer is yes, go for it.
I like it. Hopefully that's helpful. If you have any follow-up questions, go for it. Uh,
And you can
or
try different projects at the same time, work with more people than you would be working on one single project. So it's interesting, but not for everyone. And it's very different from typical corporate job, I would say.
yeah, I imagine the CCO fractional kind of career path, it's, more freelancer. So you are a marketing, you're marketing yourself as much as you are doing the CTO work, which can be a little bit of,
Yeah,
yeah.
it depends. If you're working solo, yes. But if you're working like me as a part of development agency, basically you do not need to worry about upcoming stream of new clients. Other people are doing that.
That's actually a good point too. Yeah. There's probably plenty of different firms out there and like different agencies to help with that. Yeah. Uh, let's see here. More questions. All right, we got time for maybe one more. Moo says thanks again. They're heading out. Yeah, awesome to help. I'm glad it was beneficial for you, Moo. Um, yeah. Sorry, I'm looking through a bunch of chatter between people because you brought up a lot of interesting things for people to talk about.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
I hope I do.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think like also like, in regards to like the, role of CTO and your career development, I'm curious, how did you, kind of like get into this and what's like the biggest change from how you started your career to how again, like, you said like the whole landscape's changed because of AI. So if you were to give yourself advice, a younger self now to pursue the same like career path, what would be the number one, two bits of advice that you would give?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes and start doing something on your own as early as possible. Probably that one. But also, as I mentioned, I used to be just a mobile engineer building apps for Android, iOS, and I liked it so much. But it turned out that just nature, I took more and more responsibility. Now I have a team under my supervision. Now I have multiple teams. Now I need to work with multiple clients. So as a result, I stopped coding. I stopped actually creating apps, more like managing, controlling, working on the product itself, like high level, but not actually executing it. But with AI, I was able to actually partially get back to this dream. So now, without large engineering team, I can create products on my own, try something new. And the boring part, like coding itself, it's solved. So this AI agentic era is kind of huge relief for myself. Along with regular CTO duties, I'm able to do something new for myself.
I love that. I love hearing about people with passion getting to engage with their passions. Like, yeah, as you get older, you have lots of friends that you grow up with, and they're very passionate about certain things. The most heart-wrenching thing for me is reconnecting with someone that I haven't, like, spent time with in a little bit, and then learning that they haven't put any time into, like, the things that they're passionate about. So I love that, like, yeah, like, the new era of uh, AI is helping people like you have, like, a little bit of extra time to exert that creativity and dig into that. I think that's lovely. Um, yeah, this
Do
was
not wait.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Okay,
I
no, no,
cut you
go, go,
off.
go. No, go.
Probably just last thought here. Uh, do not wait for perfect timing. It will never happen. If you have a great idea, if you have passion to do it, just do it. Everything else is just excuses.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to touch in. Like, this comes up often with a lot of mentors, this idea of uh, done is better than good. And you kind of touched on this too, with like, the MVPs and like, like scaling it down and just getting something good enough out the door. So you're in the market and you're able to learn and start to test these validations or test for validation. And yeah, like trying to be too perfect or thinking that something's not good enough because it doesn't align with what your grand vision is so detrimental. So I love that you said that. I love that you said that. And hopefully everyone has a little bit more uh courage to make themselves a little more vulnerable by putting something out there that's not quite perfect, but it's good enough to do what it's meant to do. Either represent some form of expression from themselves if it's like a piece of art or some aspect of their passion, whether that's like spinning up a fun little like, app and just being creative like that and seeing, if they can do it. Or if it's a MVP, same deal. If it's able to provide people with the core benefits and it's enjoyable enough to use, then it's good enough. It's wonderful. And it gives you the ability to build that traction, get that validation, and hopefully refine it through the iterative process and move forward with it. So it becomes what you want it to be. But yeah, like you want to do that quickly, not fail fast, but approach everything as like a science experiment in control and just move forward with, whatever capacity you're allowed to with, the unique constraints you have in your life. But I really appreciate that as like an end note. I think that's beautiful and we're just up on time. So Max, if you have any final things to say, any fun announcements you want to share with the community, now's the time.
Um, I just want to say thank you to everybody who participated in today's event. I really enjoyed our conversation, so I'm glad that I was invited there. So thank you so much, guys. And if somebody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, have some follow-up questions, feel free to pin me in direct message. I'll try to respond to everybody. Thank you, guys.
You're amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is wonderful. Hope to have you
And
back.
special thanks to our great host, Gary.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of the day and the week. Catch you all later. Take care. Thanks again, Max.